Welcome, judging from the time on the clock. It is Biden time. And as always, I am Christian Bladt, joined by our, I was going to say the Indiana Jones of our show, but at least, in a pandemic, you're sort of like Indiana Jones. You've flown more than anybody I know, the one and only Mr. Scott Moore. Hello,
That is
sir.
true. It's good to be here. Yeah, I think that is true. I think I've done more traveling. I was saying to somebody the other day, I've done more traveling this year than any year since I've moved to LA 15 years ago. And that's including international travel when I've been
Yeah.
back and forth on trips. It's kind of crazy.
It's interesting because this is a time when people are flying. I honestly can't tell you the last time I flew. I'm just not really sure when. I think it might be summer 2019. I had to go to Knoxville for work, and I'm like, I just don't think I've flown since then. But I've got kids, and if I'm going to go somewhere, a lot of times it's like, if I'm going to step on a plane, that's 4 times the airfare. So better to just not step on a plane. And to bring it around, in general, obviously, people are, you still have to wear masks on airplanes. And I know that part. Are people trying to sneak their way around? It's like, well, I'm just eating constantly. Or, oh, I forgot, wink, wink. Or how's it going with the airline mask compliance?
Well, yeah, there are, the flight attendants are having to go around and tell people, hey, put your mask on, cover your nose, even so they're not usually letting people get away with it or especially when it comes to eating. But yeah, it's interesting, especially, I mean, we'll probably get into it here about how now they've started to re-implement masks indoor settings here in LA County. And it's been a little bit interesting as well to see how that's worked and how people are enforcing that as well.
Yeah, that is actually. Go ahead.
The most part, I was gonna say, but for the most part, the minute you walk into that terminal at the airport, mask on, or you're going to be told to put it on.
Yeah, and that is actually where I was going to take it back around to. As here in Los Angeles, they haven't done anything with capacity. I guess a lot of the more paranoid amongst us will want the word "yet" to be included. You can still eat inside in a restaurant, and obviously you don't have to eat through your mask. But there's not the eating flap.
It's like the Mike Pence thing here with the bug.
Yeah, like it's not like the old, like the little kid pajamas with the little trap door in the back. Yeah,
the stupid bug.
I know this bug is like literally on your face right now, isn't it?
Total Mike Pence moment here, but it's like he's much more aggressive. He's not just landing.
Yeah, that's the Delta species of the Mike Pence fly. But
I have the doggy door open, and I think that's why these bugs are coming in. Just being transparent here. Not that I live in a.
Yeah, no. You live in a junkyard like Fred Sanford. Yeah. So obviously, some critters will wander in. So, yeah, I mean, look, here in Los Angeles and in Las Vegas are the two places that I know who have eased up on their mask wearing policy and then gone back to it. For indoors, outdoors, you're still kind of on your own. But for outdoors, you're all right. But for indoors, it seems I don't know. For here in Los Angeles, I was surprised that they went to it quite as quickly as they did. It's like everything is open and you don't have to wear a mask. It was almost like this should have been the date. Like, yeah, we'll be open for a month and then we'll see how it goes. Let's, and besides, look, it's the summer, especially when you live in the Valley, like Scott and I do. It's really hot here in LA this time of year. So when you go into the supermarket, it's freezing. So I need a mask on my face, and very chilly. But what this really comes down to is that you can't trust the unvaccinated people, because they decided that they wouldn't wear masks either. Because the rule always was you don't have to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. But if you are vaccinated, if you are not vaccinated, you need to. Well, then everybody just wasn't wearing them. And I went the other way, where I was vaccinated, but I usually still wore them inside because, I don't know, I'm used to it at this point. And as we've talked about, my kids aren't able to get vaccinated. And if I want them to wear masks, which I do because they're too young to be vaccinated, it's very hard for me to be like, well, you have to wear a mask. I don't, but you do. So, what do and what do you think about sort of the about face here in Los Angeles and in Las Vegas? Do you think that other states are going to have to make the about face? And are there also yet some other states where it doesn't matter what's going on, they will never make people wear masks again?
Yeah, both. I think some states are going to probably require a bit more. I read somewhere that basically, if the tier system here in California was back, LA County would be in the most restrictive tier right now, in the purple tier, which was, basically everything shut down indoors and everything. And so part of the, and I think we've talked about this before, part of the problem is that they keep just changing the rules all the time, and it has not been consistent. And even people that agree with it, like myself, find it a bit frustrating to be like you said, like a month ago, everything's open. You don't have to wear a mask indoors if you're vaccinated. And now it's like a month later, just kidding. Even if you're vaccinated, you have to wear a mask indoors. And personally, I don't like having to wear a mask when I'm at the gym, for instance, because I do find, especially when you're doing cardio and you're working, it is a bit challenging. And sometimes there's enough space at the gym where you don't feel like you're right on top of somebody anyways. And I'm vaccinated, so I feel less concerned about that. So I wish that they would be a little bit more consistent with these rules, because the more back and forth they go, the less that they're going to get the public to be on their side, even in places that do agree with these. Because I have a lot of my liberal friends as well that are, it's not, I mean, it's not politicized and it's not supposed to be, but, are feeling like the whole mask thing now here in LA County is a bit ridiculous. Now, they, like you said, they should have just kept it in for the next couple of weeks back in June and seen how things were going. So I think it's just getting that buy-in from the public is going to be a bit harder to continue consistently when you do this, when you keep going back and forth. Secondarily, I think there's going to be states and municipalities that will never enforce a mask rule again, regardless of how bad it gets. And thirdly, I think it also does a disservice by starting to implement mask requirements for the vaccinated, because now it's saying to unvaccinated folks, well, see, it's not really working that well because, we have to now have everyone mask up. Whereas we're doing it because there's no vaccine mandate. There's no way of being able to say, hey, do you have your vaccine or not? So in that, we have to treat everyone like they're all unvaccinated now. And that's why we have to mask up. But for those that are hesitant about getting the vaccines, it actually works the other way around. I think psychologically it makes them think, we'll see, now they're not thinking the vaccines are working or they're not good, or I don't need to get one because now everyone has to mask up anyway. So in a way, it almost feels like it'll keep some people on the sidelines a bit longer, potentially, because now they're seeing that this mask rule is back in effect. And I don't think a lot of places are going to implement. I mean, even Governor Newsom said yesterday that masks and everything are not the way we want to go, and social distancing, it's just getting more people vaccinated. But when you have an outlier like LA County doing that in a big populated area, it becomes more difficult, I think, to encourage people to get the vaccine, because it's the rules are too whiplashed back and forth. And so there does need to be better consistency, and it is a little bit disconcerting to know what's going to happen down the line. Are they now going to say in a month, okay, well, now we are going to have to start, restricting businesses again if the numbers don't change? And, they did say that in an article in the LA Times this past weekend, that that's a possibility as well. And they're leaving everything on the table. So it does make me a little nervous that something like that could happen again too out here.
Yeah, and I think that you're seeing steps like for those that aren't familiar with the minutia of Southern California. One, good for you. Two, let me explain that Pasadena is not part of Los Angeles, so they're making city employees all have to get vaccinated. And up in the Bay Area, they're making any government employees that are up there have to get vaccinated. And I think that that's sort of where the thinking a month ago was like, well, we're not going to make anybody get vaccinated. But then kind of the trend over the last month is, yeah, we're going to have to go ahead and make people get vaccinated. And I think that the thing that they were trying not to do was, any of us who've been vaccinated, you may not even know, but there's a website you can go to and you can get a QR code that reflects the fact that you've officially gotten to vaccination, or full vaccine, because there's the people who got the Johnson & Johnson. So so you don't actually need the little white card. And then there's always you can fake the little white card. A lot of people are talking about that. People have gotten arrested for selling fake little white cards. Well, the little white card is actually not what gets you into things. So I'm wondering if you think, Scott, just thinking here in Los Angeles, and it could end up spreading further than that. Do you think that if they're going to hold a large event, a sporting event, a concert or something, it's like, well, no, you're going to have to show that QR code that either shows that you're vaccinated or a negative test. I think they usually say in the last 48 hours or something. You hear about, there are individual events that do that. Like the Foo Fighters were supposed to play at the Forum, and they postponed it because it's just not because of the news or anything, but because somebody that works, probably somebody on their crew, tested positive. But when they do have the show in August, it's going to be exactly that. You prove you're vaccinated or you show us a test from the last 48 hours. Do you think that that's something that's probably going to become more common? And do you think that maybe that's why all the stuff that is scheduled wasn't scheduled for July and early August? I think that they were trying to figure out what the policy was going to be. And, there's a lot of stuff scheduled for August and the fall,
There is. And I do believe that that is going to be more of the thing that we're going to see. And as you said earlier, I think, the next step is going to be requiring people to be vaccinated in general. I think you're going to see more employers requiring that. You're going to see more places that are going to say, if you want to be here, you're going to have to share your vaccination card or your proof of vaccination. And, large events out here in California have already been doing that to some degree. I know when I know I mentioned back when I went to the Clippers game back in May, they required us to show our vaccination or to go and get a test around the corner and prove that, we were negative before we could even go in. So I think that that's just going to happen, especially for larger venues. But you might start to see it happen in some of the mid-sized venues, or going into a nightclub, or a bar where people aren't always wearing masks, or a mid-sized indoor concert or stage performance. I think you'll start to see more of that as we move forward. And I do think you're going to start to see more requirements to show proof of vaccination, just to be able to get back out into the world again.
Yeah,
that's absolutely that's going to be the next step, as opposed to you don't have to get vaccinated, but you have to wear a mask. I think the next step is going to be you're going to have to show proof of that.
Yeah, and you're talking about larger size venues, but if I'm going to show like at the Whiskey A Go Go or the Viper Room, one of those small clubs where you're like on top of everyone, I'm like, oh, I want it more there. I want to know that they've at least vetted people. And you know what? If somebody's gone through the effort of getting a fake QR code, all right, well then I guess good for them that they, I guess they deserve to come and see the show. And it's what we were talking about when, vaccine rollout was really starting. And just for me personally, it is nobody's right to go to a Dodger game or to go and see the Foo Fighters. It's a choice. And if you choose that you're not going to get vaccinated, if you don't want to wear a mask inside, then you don't have to do those things. And as I've always said, I think that if you start restricting admittance to the supermarket or Target for people that aren't vaccinated, I think that's a real problem. Especially, you have to let people into the hospital that aren't, vaccinated. But in terms of things that are recreational and things they don't need, I don't see a problem with it. And I'm sure that people do. And it's always like, show us your papers. Well, yeah, sometimes you need to show your papers. When I backpack around Europe, I had to show my papers all the time because I didn't belong there. I had a mix up in Prague and didn't pay for the subway correctly. So, oh boy, did they want to see my passport and talk to me at great length.
I mean, and again, to me, it's no different than, and again, it goes back to people saying, oh, you need to show your ID to vote. It at some degree, it's no different than you showing your ID to prove that you're old enough to buy alcohol.
Yeah, buying alcohol and cigarettes is also not a right. So proving that you're supposed to be able to buy those things is the way to go. I think we're getting a little lag time from you,
or just Scott. In general.
Yeah, there you go. You caught up.
Let me just stop the camera.
But yeah, in general,
the bug, anyways. maybe it'll help.
Yeah, I miss the bug as it is. And see, look, now I'm on the big screen. It's like, if we're not going to see him, then I might as well show off my beautiful background and this box of comic books and this toy truck and that R2-D2. And I want people to give me the rationale, the explanations for why. And look, if the numbers in terms of the spread of the virus are exactly where they were a month ago, I would probably feel a little bit different. I'm like, oh, you probably don't need to do those things. But because it's gone the other way, and you've heard about people, I've heard of like musicians and bands who were touring who did get vaccinated, who have then tested positive. And the good news is that if you're vaccinated, it doesn't hit you the same way if you'd gotten it a year ago, but you still get it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's even more reason, and it's like, we're hearing in the news that the people who got the Johnson & Johnson, like our friend Tamara, who is much too busy working to be with us today, she got the Johnson & Johnson. So she might need a booster specifically designed to combat the Delta variant. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where we have the concern, and I like to continue to be optimistic that, things that I thought I was going to be able to do over the next couple months, I'll still be able to do. Maybe there'll be, and I'm sort of wondering, is it going to be rude? A good example is my sister-in-law's getting married in October. Is it going to be rude to ask people to get tested beforehand? Not say, show us the results, but hey, we'd really like everybody to get tested beforehand. It's an outdoor wedding, but it's like, things are a little crazy right now. And is that a good way to save on the catering budget, Scott? Because people who are offended aren't going to come anymore, So
well,
all of a sudden,
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think,
Oh, boy, now the audio
location
is
required everybody.
right.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Even now the
there's
audio
little bit
was
of
a little
lag there.
robotic. Yeah.
That's weird. And I have full reception here. No, I was saying I was in Florida on a film shoot, and the location required us to still get tested even if we were vaccinated. But they brought a nurse there.
Yeah.
So another thing they could do is say, hey, if you want to come to our wedding, we are going to be doing, rapid testing. Not that it really matters because it's not going to be fully accurate, but we're going to do rapid testing. You will have to be tested if you come to our wedding on site, and then, that kind of thing. You could always do something like that, because again, if someone gets tested and they're positive, what's to say they still don't show up at your wedding? Still show up anyways because they don't believe it's a big deal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They've been there, for like the half hour it takes to get the results or whatever. But yeah,
right.
I know it's like
hard.
weddings at 4, the happy hours at 2, but you have to show up for your COVID test at 1. It's like it's a full day of activities. Or maybe a COVID test outdoor brunch. You make an event of it.
Exactly.
We're gonna have mimosas and swabs. Hey, this isn't a bad idea, actually. I'm gonna pass this along to my sister-in-law. And because like I think that what it comes down to is, look, people who are opposed to mask mandates, people who don't like this idea of the vaccine passport, as it's often referred to, they also probably don't want to go back to the way things were last spring. In whatever state they live in, I mean, there was a time where there were restrictions in Florida and Georgia. I know it's hard to remember, but there was a time when Cracker Barrel, Waffle House, and Chick-fil-A were all closed and they weren't letting anybody in. There's a time to remember. By the way, 3 of my favorite restaurants. I'm not being condescending to anyone. I love all of those places.
I do too.
I should have said Bojangles because of how often Scott and I talk about Bojangles.
But they're all on my list. Are you kidding me? I can't live there anymore because I would gain way too much weight because I would be eating there all the time.
Just imagine. Yeah. So, I think that we just need to be more cautious right now. And, it's unfortunate that things have gone that way. But I think that this step is better than, oh, yeah, we're going to cancel everything we were going to do. Because then it's like, oh, we're going to cancel the indoor events, but outdoor stuff is going to be okay. You can have something at Dodger Stadium, which is 55,000 people, but you can't have an indoor event at the Forum, which is like, I don't know, 19, 20,000 people, So, let's try this step and see where it goes. And hopefully it goes well. I mentioned the vaccine passports, and I think it's interesting that there's been a little bit of an about face from the I think that believe they call themselves the most trusted name in news, Fox News Channel. They have shifted their tone a little bit on the vaccine with Sean Hannity, taking a step to say, like, you should take it seriously and you might want to get it. He's not going so far as to telling his audience to go get it. Whereas Tucker Carlson is still telling people it's their right as Americans to not get it, which it is, but then you don't get to go to all the things that Scott and I just talked about, including Bojangles and Cracker Barrel and Waffle House. You don't necessarily still get to go to all those things if you don't do that. So, but of course, the hypocrisy there in this story has obviously been making the rounds. To walk into that building, the Fox News Channel building on 6th Avenue in New York, you need to, one, have been vaccinated, and every employee, including on air talent, needs to have a vaccine passport. So everyone who's on that channel saying that it's wrong, they're coming for your guns next, this is against your right. Well, they've all done it. Now they could probably say, I've had to do it and I wish I didn't. But instead, we'll just keep quiet about it. What do you think, Scott? Do you think that they see another Dominion-sized lawsuit headed their way, and they're like, you know what, we maybe probably should stop telling people they don't need the vaccine?
Well, I mean, again, it just reeks of hypocrisy when every single one of their hosts is vaccinated, and now they're telling everyone else that they shouldn't, and it's not a good look to begin with. And yes, it's there is the thing that it's the part of the problem is that this was politicized last year. It never should have been. And secondarily, the big thing is, if you have a mouthpiece like that and you have the ability to persuade people, this could virtually, I don't want to say be over completely, because it'll always sort of be there in the background, like the flu. But we could really resume normal activity and not make this into a political liberty issue. As I was saying to someone else, it's like, if we were to go through something major like a World War II or some major catastrophe, I fear for the future of this country. I just don't think that this country is able to sacrifice with half the citizens deciding they're not going to even wear masks out. How can they sacrifice anything else for the greater good of the future of this country? So I don't see how this country survives in the future with a real serious issue, because we politicize everything now and make everything into because people are just too selfish and lazy now, and have never had to really sacrifice growing up like some of the previous generations, and don't know how to do it. Because you've seen a lot of older people, even conservatives and most hardcore Republican people that I've known in my life that are older and had no problem masking up and had no problem waiting in line and being the first to get vaccinated. And if enough people and friends were to support and just say, hey, I got my vaccine, everything is good, I think the messaging would kind of turn the corner a bit. And that should be the way it looks at, or the way we look at this, instead of looking as, oh, you're going to get COVID and your symptoms are going to be bad or whatever. I think the new way to persuade people should be for family members and friends to go and say, hey, I got my vaccine 3 or 4 months ago, no bad reactions, everything's good, I'm feeling great, and I'm out kind of living my best life. I'm out living my normal life again. And I think if enough people were to say that, friends and family, even on conservatives or independents, and again, not trying to politicize it, but it has been politicized, that would also, I think, encourage more people to go out and see, okay, because some of that vaccine hesitancy there. And again, if it comes down to something like a Fox News and it's a trusted program that you're watching day in and day out, and they're to say it's no big deal to get the vaccine, yes, it's a personal choice, but just remember, you may not be able to do everything you want to do without it. And you may also be putting not just yourself at risk, but your loved ones at risk. But the vaccine is safe. We got it, back in February, and we're feeling great. If they were to do that, I think that would make a big change. And in fact, some other people said that Trump should go out more and talk about it and how the vaccines work, because obviously he got it, and he kind of briefly mentioned it. We've seen Mitch McConnell bring it up quite a few times, and again, Mitch McConnell had polio as a child, and he sees the value in these vaccines. If he would go out and speak up more, and you got people like Trump to speak out more, that would really encourage people and on the merits of the vaccine rather than you're going to get COVID and it's going to be devastating, because a lot of people also don't believe COVID is that bad. They think it's, a bad cold and that's it. And for some people it is. But I think the new tactic is they should be encouraging it that way. I'm just talking about how the safety of the vaccine, and they've gotten it several months ago and everything is good. And that would go a long ways, because you're right. Otherwise, the hypocrisy with Fox saying, don't go get your vaccine, but, oh yeah, we've had ours for months, isn't going to hold up well. And you're right, not just lawsuits, but just in general, the hypocrisy there is just not going to hold up well in the long run. And they're just making themselves look foolish.
Yeah, I think that there's I was wondering about this, and it's obviously the ultimate hypothetical conversation, but I was just wondering if President Trump had been reelected, and I know that there are, for some reason, some of you who might be watching might think that he was, and we welcome everybody here to the show, but he was not. But if he had been, would those people be the ones getting the vaccine? And then, you had Kamala Harris in a debate saying that, this is long before she was the VP nominee, saying that she wasn't sure she would get one. And, so like, would the people who've gotten it be the ones that are like, oh, I don't know if it's like, I trust science, but I don't know if I trust that science. I like to think that it would actually mean more people would have gotten vaccinated. I know it's a hypothetical, but I was thinking about this the other day. What do you think, Scott? Do you think that if Trump were president, that the people who've gotten it for the most part still would, and then a lot of the people holding out, of course, he would want to have the 85%. He'd want to have a higher vaccination percentage than Canada.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because I've also seen that on in the Twitter sphere, and seen people say that very exact same thing from the conservative side, like, oh, you were just saying in the fall how you don't trust the vaccines, and now you're telling everyone to get a vaccine. But I do think it is different, and it goes back to the problem that we've had with Donald Trump all the time, is that people would believe him more if he wasn't so bombastic and lied so much, because not everything he said is a complete and utter lie. But the problem was the way he does it, and everyone always thinks there's an ulterior motive behind everything that he does. And that's the problem. And when you were seeing it done during an election time period and things being rushed out, there are people that would think, yes, it is for political gain, because if you can say this, and people do that with incumbency all the time. I mean, look at all the things that Gavin Newsom is doing right now for the recall. Incumbency has an enormous amount of power, and you have the government fully behind you to make things happen. And so, yeah, a lot of people were concerned about that and trusting it. But if Trump was reelected and we had moved through, there is less of a political impetus there, after an election, that once we're moving through and people are vaccinated, I do believe that more people, even that didn't vote for him, would come around. And you're right, I think it would help on both sides. However, I just don't think Trump would be encouraging people to get vaccines in the same way, and it would not have been as organized with the federal government supporting the states to get the vaccine out. So I still think that the numbers would likely be lower, because we saw how disorganized they were leading up to the handover. And so I think even if more people were willing to get it in the red states, and then you probably would have a bit of a lag, but I do believe that the numbers would be catching up on the liberal side as well in the blue states. But I think the problem would end up being the organization, and the way the federal government would be set up would probably keep numbers lower than where we would be right now, because they just did not have a good plan in place, and they really just didn't care. I mean, you saw the Trump administration, even before the election, just had no interest in really organizing anything. So I don't know if that would have changed at all, because red states would have still opened up anyways, and things would have been back to normal for half the country in that sense. And then they would have politicized and said, look, now the blue states are just holding back the economy because they're trying to make it look bad for Republicans. So I think it really it wouldn't have changed dramatically. But I do agree with you. It is something that has definitely come up, and I have seen it lately, even in the Twitter world, with conservatives saying that exact same thing. That, liberals were saying don't take it, they don't trust it because it was coming from Trump. And now you're seeing the reverse, where people are saying, okay, now liberals are saying go take it, everything's great. And now conservatives are feeling like, well, now it's different because now Biden's in office. But those are the reasons why, and we know part of it is the way Trump is, and that everything does go back to what's going to be best for him and not what's best for everyday citizens. So that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that, really. And I think it's interesting, Scott, because you and I have been doing a version of this show for 5 years, literally 5 years this week. Happy birthday to us. And I think the nicest thing I've ever heard you say about Donald Trump was something you just said a minute ago, which was not everything out of his mouth was an absolute lie. I think you've come a long way in 5 months. I appreciate the fact that you're open to consider information as it's presented to you. I wanted to, on this topic, I saw this tweet from Jake Tapper at CNN, and that because I'm formatting the screen all weird, you actually can't see it correctly. But here, I don't know where it went. Oh boy, what did I do? I got everybody here now. Okay, let's put us all back. Let's put us all back.
That's good.
Yeah, there we go. So, Jake said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Operation Warp Speed, approved by then President Trump, is a remarkable accomplishment. For his fans to not get vaccinated is an insult to that accomplishment. First of all, not lost on me that he referred to Trump supporters as fans. Yeah. I believe that is 100% accurate.
Yes, it is.
But his point, as I've said, look, if you think that our Operation Warp Speed was such a great accomplishment, and I've been in the minority on this show, but I feel like he should at least get more consideration for being in charge at that point and at least getting it to happen. You can pick apart other things, but for the people who are the diehards, it's like, yeah, this is his thing. And, for him to, this is kind of the major accomplishment that he can have. This could be his legacy. It's like, I got this through and look how many people got it. Well, that's not really the case. The dogs are chasing after the flies now.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me mute this.
No, that's all right. So I think it's an interesting point. And, I wish our friend Storage Yard Resident was here today, because he is one of the most vocal Trump supporters that we know in association with this show. But we weren't on last week, so I think that he didn't know for sure we would be back. But I hope you're watching the archive version of this. And if you are, go ahead and leave a comment on the archive version down below. I'll always try and get back to them. But if you're watching this after the fact, let us know what you think. This idea that, Trump supporters should support this vaccine that their guy championed. He took it. He and Melania made sure to get the vaccine before they were dragged out of the White House. But then they just kind of, they pulled the Baltimore Colts and just snuck out in the dead of night is really what they did.
Well, that's what it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If he would go out and he would encourage people to go out and take the vaccine himself, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, and look, you don't even have to you don't have to own up to Biden being a good president. You can go out there and be like, look, I don't like this guy. I know you don't like him, but this vaccine is good. Believe me, I was there. Do you like me? I want you to be able to vote for me in 3 years. I mean, that's really what the message should be. And if Donald doesn't want to get out there, what about Don Jr.? You want to vote for my dad in 3 years? I wouldn't put Eric in charge of it, but, and Ivanka actually has a real job, so she's too busy. But, let's put Don Jr. in charge of it. Get them out there and say, we want you to be able to vote for my dad, because you'll hear, look, the places where you hear about the largest number of unvaccinated people and the direct correlation for the people that are experiencing, symptoms and testing positive for the virus are in places like Arkansas. You're hearing places that are deep Trump country. And, I think it's we have some interesting numbers, when it comes to the fact that more than 99% of the people who are hospitalized or dying from this latest round of COVID, this Delta variant, are the unvaccinated. In any case, I wanted to kind of go ahead, Scott. Oh, I think there was just the dogs chiming in. But in terms of all this vaccination talk, and I have a couple other things I want to make sure we get to, but I did want to circle around to the they're still calling them the 2020 Olympics, even though they're the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, and they're holding them. And a lot of events are happening without spectators. Most of them are, and any that have spectators, foreigners are not allowed. It's just locals. And I mean, I know NBC paid a lot of money for
anymore either.
Oh, the locals aren't anymore. Okay, so they're doing all their events are for nobody, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so and look, right. I know NBC dropped a fortune on the Olympics, and obviously there are broadcasters around the world that plan to show the Olympics. So doing it as just a TV show, it seems a little silly to me. People, I know somebody who lives in Japan that he's telling me that in general, people do not think that they should be holding these Olympics. I think that they're doing their best to keep people isolated and, have them not pose a health threat to the people of Japan. And also keep the athletes safe, both sides of that. But you're having a number of them who have to drop out because they test positive. So, Scott, do you think that going forward with the Olympics in Tokyo this summer was a good idea? Are you thinking about it?
And I know we've talked about it before, and I knew this come up as a, well, yeah, I was going to say, like, we talked about this before, and I knew this was going to be a potential issue, as we were moving closer, and guys should have had it, but it was going to happen anyways, because like you said, it came down to money, and that was the thing. And it also came down to the IOC, the Olympic Committee, games, how it kind of goes, making it really difficult for a lot of these athletes. Athletes now are getting positive results and now having to be full performance. So that's really kind of sad. We're going to have several potential Olympians have positive, and then they're not going to compete. That's really a shame.
Yeah.
You're not going to.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
how is that going to be? You have no energy from the crowd. I mean, it's all terrible.
Yeah. No, I know, and it's almost like, look, the Dodgers won the World Series last year, but it was like a 60-game season where there were no fans until the playoffs. So it's like, do you compare that the same way? And then you kind of wonder about, like, well, what about these Olympic records? People have record-setting, numbers in, any event really. And it's like, yeah, well, they weren't distracted by any of that crowd noise, they just, it was kind of just like a practice for them. So yeah, I'm personally not a huge fan of the Olympics, just in general. I don't enjoy watching these events. I don't follow these sports, like in the Winter Olympics when they have hockey, I at least get that because it's a sport that people watch, and I'm fascinated by curling just because of how crazy it is. But in general, so if they, I don't think that they should have canceled them outright. But I don't know that having them this year was the solution. I'm sure that last summer when they kicked it to 2021, it made sense. But at some point in early 2021, they should have realized it's like, yeah, the 2020 Olympics are actually going to be 2022. And then we'll figure out what to do with the Winter Olympics. And, because they want to make sure that the 2024 Olympics happen when they're supposed to. So they don't want to get too close to that. So, but let us know in the comments if you are going to watch the Olympics. I think that it's, for people that are going to watch at home, it's probably not that different. I mean, I was I was excited that there were baseball games with no fans in the stands last year because it just gave me something, anything to watch. So I just want to know how people feel about that. I wanted to just spend a quick moment on the trend of billionaires using their
I was just
wealth.
going to say real quick, I will be.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I will be watching just to support Olympic.
Yeah, you will be to supporting, and Frederick says that he couldn't care less. So that's Frederick's stance on that issue. We're getting some very garbled audio from you, Scott. I don't quite know what the fix is, because we got rid of the picture. You're depriving us of your handsomeness.
I'll log back in.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll say goodbye to Scott for just a moment, but that's all right. Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious as to how people feel about the Olympics. But I'm with Frederick. Even if the whole world was healthy and these had happened last year, I still wouldn't watch the Olympics. If I'd heard a rumbling that the opening ceremony was cool, like the year they were in London, I think I went and found that sequence because I wanted to see it. But in general, I'm just not that interested in, pole vaulting and track and, any of that stuff. A lot of the events that they have. But that's okay. In any case, when Scott's back, we're going to talk about there's this trend for billionaires to leave the planet. And, Jeff Bezos just being the latest. And, it's like, well, they go to space, but, they don't really go to space. So they have all this money. And instead of using it towards, helping various charitable causes or anything like that, I'm talking, Scott, about, Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson. The thing to do with their wealth is not to, and I'm not saying that they don't give any money to any charities, but instead what they're doing is they're going to space. And I was just sort of wondering how people feel about this idea with, all some of our richest individuals actually go, like, is this what all the billionaires are going to do now, Scott? They're all going to like take a little joyride into space for like 10 minutes. And I think we should go back to clicking off the picture. I think we should click off the picture again, Scott, because let's try that. Okay. Anyway, so what do you think? You think that this is what all the cool billionaires are going to do? Yeah.
Well, I think it's an ego trip for everybody. There's still a bit of a lag, but I don't know what else I can do. I have full Wi-Fi and without resetting it, and then I'd be off for a few minutes. But yes, I would say that that's it. It's an ego trip, and literally, and that the money could be used, and that kind of proves.
Yeah.
You should have to be taxed a bit more and do other things. So
yeah. Well, I think that we lost a little bit of what you said, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, it just seems like you need to go to space. Like, really, that's the thing. And once Richard Branson did it, then Jeff Bezos had to do it, and we'll see. I'm surprised Bill Gates hasn't gone to space yet, but give him time. Definitely give him time. I'm sure that he's going to feel like he needs to go at some point. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this. There's this committee that's exploring January 6th, not the committee that didn't get approved, but the one that is approved. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, decided to block the Kevin McCarthy's appointment of Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, who not everybody knows, but Jim Jordan of Ohio is somebody that we all know about. And, in terms of Trump fanboy, I think would be the best way to describe Jim Jordan. And I think that she felt that having them as a part of this would just, I don't know, I guess when they're coming with such a strong contrary point of view that it could hurt. I don't know. I think maybe it could help because you could actually help disprove the beliefs that they're coming in with. But I don't know if it makes it hard to get work done. Now, Kevin McCarthy's saying that, well, if you're going to do that, I don't know if I'm going to support this panel. I think by appointing these two, maybe you didn't support it anyway. What do you feel about this development, Scott? Who, when the video's not there, I really can't tell if
I just actually on Twitter looking.
Yeah. Looking up some of your friends like Mitch McConnell.
Very weird lag. Yes, it's all politicized now, because now Republicans, this is exactly what they wanted, because now Republicans can go back and say, oh, look, this is just a political fishing expedition, to go tell their voters, like, look, they're just doing this just to show that they're trying to get the Republicans now. But again, it doesn't really hold up when Kevin McCarthy himself has been noted that Benghazi was also partly there to be a political expedition. So it's a little bit hypocritical, but we knew this was the game all along. This is why they decided not to have the bipartisan commission to begin with. And now it's unfortunate for them, because this will now stay out in the news longer. And as they go through and do this commission, Democrats are going to continue to uncover things that, regardless if it's politicized or not, a lot of independents and a lot of people are going to be seeing this out in the news much further than the end of the year now, which, if it was a bipartisan commission, it would have been locked up and been done by the end of the year. But now that it's not, they will be able to continue to look into things well into next year and well into the midterm elections. So beyond that, and if the economy does improve and we do see that we pass this Delta variant in the fall, it's a little nerve-wracking how those numbers are going to be. But if we do, the economy and seeing this out in the news all the time is really not going to Republicans. And as I've said all along, the calculus, political calculus has changed with Trump, and you no longer see sort of type of patterns you used to see, where a midterm would usually be out of party, out of power party. You're not seeing that anymore. So you might see more of a reversal back to what happened with Bush in 2002. And you might see that Democrats are still able to hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that they might be able to actually hang on, and the longer this goes on, the less pleased that the Republicans will be. And I'm just talking over you because we lost a little bit of what you said. And Kevin McCarthy's quote was, he called Pelosi's move an egregious abuse of power that will irreparably damage this institution. Although personally, I think that the thing that would have irreparably damaged the institution is if a group of people had found the vice president and murdered him. That I think would have irreparably damaged the institution. And Frederick in the chat, how could Biden win 2020? Biden won 2020 because he got more votes, and he got more votes in states that had a lot of electoral votes, and he got more than 270. So he became the president, whereas Donald Trump got less votes, and he got less votes in those states. So therefore, he was not elected president. Now, there are some people that feel as though that might not be the account that is accurate, but I am just telling you that my understanding, and I'm not the smartest guy around, I don't pretend that I am, but that's how it happened. That's actually how Biden won, was that more people voted for him. And there was a lot of people that were voting for whatever wasn't going on right now, whatever was the not Trump vote. Anyway, I just thought I'd tidy that up at the end there. And Scott, I appreciate you working through the tech issues, the insect issues. I enjoyed the chorus of canines behind you, the canine gospel choir. I found it to be delightful. Yeah. But I hope that you're able to. Yeah, there he is. But we'll figure it out for next time, I'm sure. And if people want to keep in touch with Scott, they can do that at SMan80. You're still, right there, SMan80, and you were mentioning your pal Mitch McConnell was telling people to go out and get vaccinated. So good for him. We can point out the things that he does that we can be critical of, but then there was that as well. And if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I am at ChristianDMZ, and please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. You'll get this show, and we will be back next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. You'll also get Marvel movie talk, and of course the titular Blackcast and a whole bunch of interviews that I do. So thank you to Frederick for being in the chat. There were some other people in and out, but Frederick had the most to say. And thank you to Scott, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks.